Okay, so I've read a report, and this is actually in furtherance of a report that I read in the newspaper. They're not a report, but a quotation. And it concerns two MPs who are respectively well known for their outspoken views on men's issues and women's issues, respectively. Philip Davies and Jess Phillips. But guess who's getting all the heat? Okay, so just to give a bit of background, Philip Davies, CMP for Shipley, Tory MP for Shipley, has addressed a conference, an international conference for men, organised by the group Justice for Men and Boys. Now, I have to be honest, I don't know a great deal about this group, but as I understand it, it's a men's rights movement. Um, and he was discussing how, in his view, feminists basically pick and choose what equality they look at. And he was talking for about 45 minutes. I didn't watch the whole speech, but he was talking about the double standards in the criminal justice system, for example. How I know some people don't like me smoking in the video, but what the hell, my channel, I don't care. Pissed off at the moment anyway, to be honest. Um, yeah, so he was talking about the double standards in the criminal justice system and how some women use children, for example, as a way to get back at men and as a weapon. Essentially, that's not an exact quotation, but that was the gist of what he was saying. Now, of course, the left have went into a big tantrum over this. The leader of the Labour Party, numerous MPs, feminists have called on Theresa May to force him to resign. Now, this is interesting. A few weeks ago, shortly after, like days after she became Prime Minister, Andrea Leadsom, who had been appointed in the Theresa May's cabinet. I forget the position now, but it was a relatively senior position. She was, of course, May's leadership rival in the Tory leadership contest. Made a disgraceful comment that basically slandered all men as paedophiles. She said that children should not be left alone with men. I think it was in reference to schools, teaching, that sort of thing. That was a disgraceful comment. It was condemned online, but there certainly wasn't the same level of, you know, campaign sort of rhetoric to have her resign. And that to me just demonstrates a massive level of hypocrisy that is out there. There was anger about that primarily. Well, I was going to say primarily from men, but actually a lot of open minded women also saw how disgraceful her comments were. Now, if the Labour Party is demanding that Philip Davies resigns, why didn't they demand that Andrea Leadsom resign for her sexist comment? And yet, what Philip Davies was talking about was zealous feminists. He wasn't talking about women in general. There's clearly a fundamental difference there. Andrea Leadsom was talking about all men. Philip Davies was talking about zealous feminists, not all women. I could understand if he'd made a generic comment attacking all women, but he was being quite specific in what he said. Now, I'm aware that Philip Davies has a bit of a controversial track record on a range of issues, and the purpose of this video was not to endorse him 100% as an MP. I know he's been very controversial, for example, on his positions on disability issues and other areas, and I mean, he's a true blue Tory, and I'm a centrist. There's many areas I would probably strongly disagree with him on. But one thing is for sure, he is one of the very few MPs around that actually does A, speak up on men's issues, and B, is willing to speak out against feminism. Now, just yesterday, Jess Phillips claimed that Jeremy Corbyn told her he was a feminist, but he hasn't appointed women to be uh, the mayoral candidates. This is referring to the fact that the Labour mayoral candidates are men. Um, well, Jess Phillips has a very long track record of male bashing in her parliamentary career. Pretty much every statement she makes is something attacking men. I'm yet to see her in a news report say anything that is not connected to how awful men are. Um, she's a shameless sexist, and that's there's no question about it. I believe the things that she has said have been far more sexist than anything Philip Davies has said, because he's targeting or he's focusing on zealous feminists. He's not talking about women in general. And the comment about some women using their children, it's a fact. It is a fact. And he wasn't talking about all women. He was talking about some women do that. Um, what really, 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 really fucks me off is the level of bias and the the just utter absence of fair coverage on gender issues in this country is staggering. Feminists pontificate that they're the underdogs. The exact opposite is true. The exact opposite is true. I regard feminism not as an ideology anymore, because I'm not talking here about original feminism, i.e., the notion of equality for women. I'm talking about the modern political movement feminism, which, in my view, is nasty, hypocritical, divisive, bullying, and dishonest. I hate it, to be quite frank. To be put it bluntly, I hate it. I hate what it does. I hate the utter vindictiveness in which it treats men. And to those male feminists who support it, all I would say is, why is it so hard for you to just look at the facts? To just look at the issues that disproportionately impact men? And how can you say that you're an egalitarian while supporting such a hateful movement? Now, I don't know a lot about this particular group that he was addressing, but if this is a misogynist group, then okay, that's a contentious issue. But from what I understand, they're only a group that campaigns for men's issues. And this is the crazy situation. Even speaking out about men's issues in modern Britain has actually become a no go. We pride ourselves on freedom of expression in this country, and to some extent that still is the case. But the feminist lobby is immensely powerful. It has its shackles within every political party, left, right, and centre. And you just have to look at the different approach. If there really was a consistency when it came to egalitarian issues, the people who are demanding his resignation would have demanded Andrea Leadsom's resignation. They didn't. They didn't. Um, because female sexism is okay. Perceptions of male sexism are not. Um, this just really, as a man, as a human being, it just fucks me right off, because the dishonesty and the double standards are so deeply entrenched within this movement that it's quite hard to fight against, because anyone who does speak against it is immediately labelled as a misogynist. And it's a good example how the power of words can be misused. If we take misogynist in its pure meaning, it means hatred of women and girls. Now, if feminists are really claiming that when an MP speaks out at a men's conference, that equates to misogyny, is that really the depth to which they have descended? I mean, it doesn't surprise me. This is very consistent with what this movement is, but I just find it quite depressing that so many people, well, I shouldn't exaggerate, actually. I don't think the public is that sympathetic to feminism, but the media, or at least large segments of it, is deeply, deeply, deeply biased towards the feminist lobby. When far left rags like the Guardian promote this agenda, it's blatantly obvious. The BBC does it all the time. Channel 4 does it all the time. Um, now, I wouldn't say the whole media. There is right wing. The Sun is never going to do it. I get that, and I'm no fan of the Sun, believe me. But I'm not saying the whole media is indoctrinated with this idea, but a very large segment of the political mainstream is. I mean, all the major political parties, with the possible exception of UKIP, is have a very, very, very institutional influence from feminism, and I just find it deeply unfortunate. I hope he isn't forced to resign. I think that would be an utter disgrace, because he's one of the very few MPs who does speak out on these issues. And like I say, I know I know people have spoken about Philip Davies in other areas. I'm not here to defend him as a constituency MP, or I'm sure he's done some immoral. I'm sure he's got immoral positions as well. I'm not here to sort of make a lavish praise of Philip Davies. But the fact is the fact. He is one of the few MPs who speaks out on issues that do disproportionately impact men. Now, if feminists really are about equality, they wouldn't have an issue with that. They'd say, okay, we're campaigning on women's rights, and this MP campaigns on men's rights. But they're trying to basically silence him, and I think it's disgusting. Because they're not just silencing him; they're silencing the disproportionate areas in this country in which men are affected. I mean, the facts are male suicide rates are higher, male homelessness is higher, and women generally get far better treatment in the criminal justice system. These are facts, okay? And there are areas that disproportionately impact women, and I'm absolutely prepared to listen to those areas. But what I hate about modern feminism is it's not a level playing field. It's not about just being about equality. And I don't know whether it's naivety or they're just used to lying, but when I see feminists say, "Oh, what people don't understand is feminism is about equality," I really, really believe that movements should be judged by their actions, not their idealized dictionary definition. So sure, on surface, feminism sounds wonderful. It's about equality between the sexes. I mean, who's going to disagree with that? But when you actually look at what this movement does, it's frankly disgusting. Um, and it isn't just against men; it's against women as well. Because any woman who doesn't agree with them is, routinely shamed as a traitor to the sisterhood. It's vile, to be quite honest. And if I would put it this way, if men are in such a privileged position, then why is it so hard to criticize feminism? Why is it men are always wary about talking about this? To be honest, I am, because they will immediately be castigated as being anti-woman. Or what I detest is if you're critical of feminism, it equates to being anti-woman. That's crazy. That's utterly, utterly crazy. That's like saying if you don't call yourself a socialist, you you believe in Dickensian factories, or if you don't call yourself a conservative, you must be, ranting communist. It's these sort of black and white logics. I just find it deeply unfortunate. And if I sound a little bit disjointed in this video, it's because I'm fed up with this, and I feel despair, to be honest, because it's so hard in modern Britain, where this movement is so powerful. But they love to say that they're the underdogs. The exact opposite is true. Um, I dream of a Britain where genuine egalitarian principles exist, and what that means is, for one thing, we would scrap the Department of Women and Equalities. There would be a Department of Equalities. Full stop. Okay, because when feminists are so hostile to men's issues being discussed, what they utterly fail to recognize is the reason men's issues are brought up is because they have been callously ignored for so long. And feminists base their platform on the biggest lie of all, which is that all men are privileged and that the patriarchy is this situation where all women are downtrodden and all men are privileged. Now, by telling this lie over and over and over again, people believe it, including well intentioned men and or naive men. And then it kind of becomes a situation that if you question feminism or criticize feminism, it's Big Brother, basically. You cannot speak against it. Feminism is Big Brother, basically. It's Orwellian. It is actually Orwellian in the sense that anyone with even a marginally different point of view must be a horrible misogynist, and I detest the way that word is thrown around by the likes of Jess Phillips. Um, and she's not the only example. There's plenty of other prominent feminists who do this, and it's just very unfortunate. And incidentally, it's one reason why, certainly at the moment, I would never ever endorse the Labour Party, although there's individual policies I agree with. The influence which feminism has, especially in the Labour Party, is immense, and that crosses left, right, and centre within the Labour Party. Um, Jess Phillips is complaining about Corbyn not being a feminist, yet he's leading the calls for Philip Davies to resign over what? Attending a men's rights conference? I mean, when you break it down, the notion an MP should resign because he dares to question an ideology, this is crazy. Can you imagine a situation where an MP was told they had to resign because they questioned socialism or conservatism? Feminism is no different. It's a political movement. It's not an ideology anymore. It is a political movement, and that is irrefutable. And those of us, male and female, who know and can see through this, I guess all we can do is just. I think one thing that is very important is not to lose your temper, because unfortunately that just goes into their hands. Because whilst their hate mongering is intolerable, whilst their lies is intolerable, I think responding with anger is probably it's backfires, because then they could just say, "Oh, look at these brutish men who." I think it's disgusting. We've just passed the 100th anniversary of the Somme, where 19,241 privileged men were slaughtered on the first day. And I think that fact should be thrown at feminists every time they insist men are privileged. It disgusts me, to be quite honest. And I'm just speaking very bluntly and very raw terms here. And if you're a woman and you're watching this, please don't think this is an anti-female video, not at all. And that's something we need to get away from. This idea that if you take issue with feminism, or you criticize feminism, it's the same as being anti-woman. It's one of the strongest tools they have in their propaganda war, by equating women with this vile movement. And by this vile movement, I'm talking about the Western sense. I'm not talking about women's rights movements in certain parts of the world. There's parts of the world where absolutely and passionately for women's rights. But whilst Western feminists cry about top female CEOs getting less than their male counterparts, or women getting acid thrown in their face in certain parts of the world. Um, that's it. That's it. Uh, I'll round this up. I'm just gonna, I've said what I need to say, but this does get me down, because I'm aware that it is very, very difficult to speak against. So certainly, there's no political willpower out there, because the very few individuals that do speak out, as we have seen, are castigated. So those of us who hate feminism for all it stands for need to support Philip Davies. Okay, disagree with him in other areas. You don't even have to like him. But it is important that those who are in a political position have a voice on raising these issues. And if feminists think that they can silence someone by forcing them to resign, that's intolerable. If Jess Phillips can stay in her seat and spew her anti-male hatred as she regularly does, there has to be a counterpart to that. Simply has to be. And if May does respond to this, I'll be very disappointed. I won't be very surprised, given that May herself has called herself a feminist. What can one do? I'm grateful for this medium, so that there is a way to talk about it, but unfortunately, sometimes it feels you're going up a uphill. It's an uphill battle to fight against this incredibly deeply entrenched lie machine that is modern feminism. I hate it, to be quite honest. I just hate it. I hate it for the way it treats men, the way it treats women who don't agree, and the way it divides people. I think that's egalitarian, not feminist.